How's it going everyone? Welcome back to my layer. Welcome back to another quick and easy cooking video. And today on the menu we have a butternut squash gnocchi with parmesan, mushrooms and peas. So this dish is quite simple to make, it's quite easy. You can buy pre-packed versions of some of the ingredients to make it easier for you. It's one of those dishes when you finish home from work, you don't want to make something that's too hard. You want to make something that's easy but really delicious. So as we're in the winter, we're going to be using winter seasonal ingredients, giving you the best possible outcome and maximum flavour. And guys, comment down below, like, subscribe as much as you can, support the channel, support the content, let me know what you're enjoying, let me know what you want to see. So without further ado guys, let's get cooking. How's it going everyone? So we're just going to start off with a gnocchi mix. So you just want 500 grams of nice pickled potatoes, 75 grams of cottage cheese, 150 grams of flour and 1 whole egg. So we're just going to begin by peeling our potatoes, which we'll then slice into slightly thin slices, just so that they cook a lot quicker. Next, we're just going to put our potatoes in salted cold water, which we're then going to bring to a boil and cook until they are cooked through and ready to mash. It's important to know that once they are mashed, that they must cool down before we add the flour and ricotta. So now we're just going to start on our sauce. So you're going to need half a butternut squash, a 500 ml of vegetable stock and a quarter glass of milk. So we're just going to start by taking the top of the butternut squash, and then what we're going to do is we're going to cut it in half, and then we're going to peel the outside layer of the butternut squash. Then we're going to cut it into large dices, which we call in the kitchen as a macédoine, which generally relates to a large dice. You could also do it into something we call a brunoise, which is a smaller dice if you preferred. Because we're just going to cut them into slices. So we're just going to cut them into even slices, which we're then going to cut into nice batons, and then further cut them into large dices, which we're going to then fry off, then puree. So the reason we cut it into batons and large dices, for anyone who's wondering, is that if you cut it into too small dices, you've got a higher chance of burning the butternut squash, which gives off not a very nice flavour when you puree it. So it's best to cut them into larger dices. Here what we're going to do, we're just going to saute off our butternut squash. So you want it at a temperature where it's not too hot, it's not too cold either, so it starts to begin to just fry off gently, so that we're not burning anything, but we're not cooking it, if that makes sense. So we're just going to cook the butternut squash, add a little bit of thyme as well. So here you just want to add 500 ml of stock, and of course if you need a little bit more, of course add just a little bit more to the stock itself. which is important to note. Well, we want enough that we're able to cover the butternut squash, but not a lot that we are diluting the flavour. So now we're just going to cover with a bit of foil. So the reason I use foil is so that I can let a little bit of steam out, so that we're not diluting any flavours. So now what we're going to do, we're just going to make the ricotta mix for the dough, for the gnocchi. So we're just going to add the ricotta to an egg, give it a good mix. You should have this almost scrambled egg kind of texture, kind of appearance. So once our potatoes are cooked, we're just going to drain them and we're going to quickly mash them so they're nice and smooth. So the reason I use mashed potatoes because they're nice and fluffy. So now we're just going to take the lid off the butternut squash, see how it's doing. So as you can see, it's reduced down by quite a bit. We don't want all the water to go, but we want to retain a little bit so that we can have that sauce kind of consistency. We're just going to turn the gas off and we're going to use our stick blender that we recently purchased. We're going to blend it nicely so there's no lumps, there's no pieces of butternut squash that remains, and it's nice, smooth and creamy. And we'll have this nice thick consistency in the end, which we're then just going to add a touch of milk in the end. So as I said before, it's important that we put the mash in the fridge to allow it to cool down. And we're just going to add the ricotta mix to the cottage cheese mix, to the mash. I'm just going to mix it all together. And now we're just going to add some sifted flour, which will provide the thickness, the doughy texture in the end. So it's important that we add this when the potatoes are cold and when they're not hot, so that we are actually providing a doughy texture. We're not just allowing the potatoes to absorb the flour. We're just going to divide our gnocchi out into 4 portions once they're nicely rolled. And then what we're going to do is one by one we're going to flour the gnocchi to just dry it out a little bit. And then we're going to roll it into a sausage shape and flour our knife so that we can cut them into nice square pillowy pieces. So by adding flour bags, what we're doing is so when we cut into the gnocchi, we're not actually making the gnocchi stick to our knife, but it will come away nicely away from the knife as we cut into it, which is what we're looking for. So now what we're going to do is just going to dip our finger onto the top of the gnocchi so that as it hits the pan, it pulls up nicely. But what you can do as well, you can use the back of a fork and just press it down lightly. And we're just going to flour our tray so that when we put our gnocchi onto it, it doesn't stick to the bottom of the tray. It's important after to sprinkle a little bit more flour onto it. So now for the accompaniments, we're just going to use chestnut mushrooms, mini mushrooms. We're just going to cut them in half. We don't want to cut them in too small, as they're already small already. Just going to cut them in half. And we're going to serve it alongside some freshly garden frozen peas, which I feel would be a nice accompaniment with mushrooms and give a nice colour and vibrancy to the overall dish. We just want to start off by frying our mushrooms off in a hot frying pan. So what we want to do is we just want to use hot oils so that we are able to evaporate any water, get rid of any water inside the mushroom, so that we have a nice coloured fried off mushroom, which we're then going to just add our peas to the mix. So we can just saute them off as well until they're nicely coloured and cooked down. Now what we do is we're just going to place our pieces of gnocchi inside our boiling water. So the indication of when they're cooked is they'll begin to float to the surface, and we'll know that they are ready to fry when we need them. So we don't want to add too many pieces because we don't want to bring the temperature down of the water. As you can see, it's float to the surface, almost like pasta, or even when you fry off fish and it begins to float to the surface, giving you indication that it's ready, it's cooked. So we're just going to use a slotted spoon, and we're just going to drain them off and place them into a bowl. So as we said before, we're just going to add a little bit of milk to the sauce, just to lighten it up, give it a little bit of creaminess, and loosen up the consistency so that we have a nice saucy consistency to our butternut squash. So now for frying off the gnocchi, we're just going to add some oil and about 50 grams of butter to our pan. We're just going to let melt, and then we're just going to drop our piece of gnocchi in. It depends how much you want to drop in. I would drop in enough for 2 portions, which will be the amount which I'm going to plate up into one bowl. If you desire for 1 portion, you can use about half of how much I put in. Allow the gnocchi to fry off, get a nice golden brown colour and a nice hazelnut burnt flavour on the outside. So this recipe will accompany 3 to 4 servings comfortably. With a nice crispy golden on the outside, fluffy potatoey on the inside, which is what we're looking for. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to pour a little bit of our butternut squash sauce inside the pan. I'm just going to give it a nice mix, a toss, so that we can stain and flavour the gnocchi itself with the butternut squash sauce, so we have this yellowy orangey gnocchi as it comes together. So here we are guys, the final product. So as you can see, it's beautiful. The purple colour just really stands out with the butternut squash, the yellowy butternut squash with the greenery coming from the parsley, the peas and the little mushrooms and parmesan dotted around. So this dish, it wasn't a very difficult dish to make. It was a nice simple dish for everyone to enjoy. If you want to buy pre-packed versions of some of the ingredients, they are available in supermarkets. And as I said guys, it's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys try this dish. And don't forget to leave a like, subscribe and comment what you guys like to see next, what you think of the dish. So without further ado guys, that's me out.